Good morning, guys. We are now going to take a trip to MEYDAN Racecourse, where you'll meet a few key figures. You'd have had quite an association with these people had you been able to visit Dubai. First up, you're going to meet Sam Shinsky, who's the Chief Steward at the Emirates Racing Authority. He's going to talk you a little bit through his day-to-day role. Secondly, you'll meet Claire Gray, who's the Sponsorship and Marketing Manager for MEYDAN. And then finally, Patrick Baker, the Track Manager, will just talk you through the MEYDAN track and all the workings of it. And hopefully you'll get to learn a little bit about MEYDAN.
Well, firstly, I'm sorry to hear that you can't make it to Dubai this season. It's something that we greatly look forward to seeing the new trainees every year. I think you're classified as the class of 2019/21, but we'll refer to you as the COVID group. But look, if you do ever get the chance to come to Dubai for a significant amount of time, please come. It's a fantastic city. The UAE is an amazing country. I first came here in 2010 and I moved here permanently in 2013, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my experience here. Obviously this is the home of Godolphin, so it's a shame that you can't be here and experience racing at MEYDAN, but also our other 4 tracks. We've just finished Super Saturday, so all gearing towards the World Cup now. But I work for the Emirates Racing Authority, and we're fairly small compared to other regulatory bodies. The BHA, Racing Victoria, Hong Kong Jockey Club have hundreds of people that work for them. We're about a team of about 8 to 10 people here with the Emirates Racing Authority, and we have several departments. I work for the stewarding department. I'm the chief steward, and we look after all stewarding matters and licensing. We have a handicapping department. We have a veterinary department, registry department, which looks after horse registrations and ownership registrations, and then we have an Arabic department, which deals with all the Arabic speaking trainers. I will speak to you briefly about my role as a steward and also the different tracks that we have in the UAE. So, as you may be aware, we have 5 tracks here in the United Arab Emirates. We have MEYDAN and Jebel Ali, which are our thoroughbred-based venues, and then we have Abu Dhabi, Al Ain and Sharjah, where predominantly the purebred Arabian horses race, but the 2 breeds do go to all of our venues. MEYDAN is the only track that has 2 surfaces, turf and dirt, but the track curator, Patrick Baker, will speak to you more in depth about MEYDAN. As stewards, our duties change on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, the main aspect of our work is race day, but we also do a fair bit in the office, which consists of licensing and also developing race fields, which get done here on a Tuesday. All our entries get taken on a Monday, and on Tuesday we develop our race fields. So the stewards will sit down with the registry office and make sure that the fields have been correctly balloted and there's the right safety numbers for each of the tracks, which does vary depending on the distance, the surface, and where the rail position is. So we'll make sure that if a field of 20 or 40 nominated horses, we can only have 16 for reserves. That's where we get involved, and if need be, we will we'll go through the whole balloting process with marbles allocating who gets the final spots. That's something that we used to show the students when they were over here on their secondment. It wasn't anything great that you were missing out on, because from past students they look pretty bored watching it, but as you can imagine, it's fairly important to get correct, because we do get queries from trainers and owners saying that our horse should have got a run and not the other one, and we need to be able to explain how we've done it. Now, probably more interesting is race day, and on race day the students did a trip around with different areas at MEYDAN. It was only at MEYDAN, but you spent some time with us as the stewards. You went to the start with the starter, You were at the scales with the checking where the jockeys weigh in and out. You spent time with the paddock stewards, whose role was to get the horses in the yard, check their equipment in order, make sure they get to the start on time. I believe you also spent some time with the handicapper and the farrier, and also Patrick Baker, who I've mentioned for the second time now. But Paddy plays an important role for us on race day, and that is if we have a critical incident where a horse gets injured or breaks down, Paddy's one of the first people on the scene with our veterinarians to treat the horse and relay the information back to us. So those were the things that you would miss out on not coming here this year and not spending time with us on the race day rotation. I'll touch on a little bit more of what we do as stewards, and obviously we analyse the race. We've got good camera work at MEYDAN compared to other tracks, so we have angles from all around the track. We come back into the stewards room where we'll analyse it. We'll question trainers, jockeys in regards to performances, interference, and we'll penalise anyone that we feel has breached the rules of racing. We'll also determine which horses we select for sampling. It's a big aspect over here is doing race day sampling, even out of competition sampling. I guess there's a stigma that maybe it's not all a level playing field here. Well, I'm here to tell you that it is. But we do test heavily. And for example, on Super Saturday, which was just the other day, every horse was subject to pre-race blood testing. We sampled the first, second and third in every race, and prior to the race we did select some horses for what we call pre-race urine testing. So if you compare the amount of tests we do to other jurisdictions, we're in another level. So that's great because we get plenty of data on where all the horses are sitting and the trainers, and gives us room to analyse how we, I guess you could say, target tests moving forward. Where a lot of other jurisdictions have a different approach. Our approach is test as much as we can because we don't have a budget, where other jurisdictions do have a budget, so they have to be more stringent on the way that they test. But that's something that we're quite proud of here. And as I say, when you go fishing, if you go fishing with a rod, you might catch a fish. If you go fishing with a net, you're going to catch a lot more. So we go testing with a net, and therefore we get a few more positive samples. But it's just the way it is. All right. So the one meeting I guess you all want to be here for is World Cup, and unfortunately you're going to miss it. But I do hope you get to see it sometime in the future, and you get to watch it from your TVs at home. But from our perspective, World Cup it's our showcase meeting, and we get to see a lot of top line horses, jockeys, trainers all come in for this one day of racing. From our perspective, it's a very busy day. We've got to explain all our whip rules, what we classify as careless riding, things like that, to a range of international riders. And touching on that, our whip rules are what we feel is fairly simple and basic for them to follow. Every jurisdiction has different rules, but here we allow the jockey to hit them 12 times, and they need to give them time to respond between each hit. And when we start off with penalties, we usually start off obviously quite low, and we increase them up. However, for World Cup time, considering the purses on offer, we straight away go into monetary fines. It won't be anything as significant as Mike Smith got in Saudi Arabia. We can't actually fine anyone that amount under our rules. But I think a couple of years ago, Christophe Simeon won on Thunder Snow, and he was fined 25,000 dirham for hitting the horse one time too many. So 13 hits, and it was his first breach of the season, and he'd been riding with us all season. So, lucky 13, lucky number 13. But he was very remorseful. But it's usually our biggest day for whip fines, and I guess it's a clear indicator that whips do get used when there's a significant amount of money on the line. So that's something we've got to keep into account, make sure that these guys don't break the rules, and if they do, that we hand out a penalty, which is a deterrent moving forward. But look, World Cup will be a spectacular meeting, no doubt. I hope you get to watch it from home. I hope I get to meet you guys at some stage in the future. And if I can leave you with one thing, it would be, please come to Dubai at some stage. It's a fantastic place to live and race. And I'm sorry that you aren't able to come out this year.
Hi to all the trainees from afar. We wish you could have been with us this season. Unfortunately, the world is a challenging place right now, and we wish you all the best in your studies and hope it goes well for you. If you had joined us in Dubai, we would have obviously tried to accommodate your interests and areas of interest. I work in the marketing communications department, and we have had several trainees with us over the years. The areas that we look after are sponsorship, marketing, media and social media, and events. So we tend to look after the two-legged people, while Sam and the team look after the four-legged horses. So our remit is to look after the income, look after the people flow, look after the guest experience at the races, and we try to target our strategies for the year on ensuring that we have enough guest attendees normally coming, ensuring that the broadcast coverage gets as far a reach as we can. Obviously, a lot of the world is relying on social media and digital marketing at the moment. Things like newspapers, magazines are kind of out now. So we're looking more at social media. And then the events, so enhancing the guest experience to make sure the races are populated with events around them to attract more attendees. From a sponsorship side, we look at attracting major partners to come and fund the prize money and operational costs around the races. We have some big partners here at MEYDAN. I don't need to go into all that with you, but we have. I'm happy to share if anybody needs any information on our sponsorship strategy. This year has been particularly challenging. Actually, last year was very challenging because we sat here around about the same time hearing about COVID, and we're quickly to realise that the Dubai World Cup 2020 would not go ahead, so it was cancelled, which was the first year in 24 years we'd ever cancelled the event. So it was quite a big impact for us. We never dreamed at that point that we would be revisiting this in 2021, but here we are. COVID has had a lot of impact on our plans for this year. We're quite close to the wire now. We're still having a fluid plan that can adjust to the authorities. We're working closely with the government authorities to ensure that all safety procedures are adhered to. The likelihood is, and it's a very strong likelihood at the moment, that we won't have spectators at the Dubai World Cup. We're looking to honour our sponsor contracts, so our sponsors will have access, Horse Connections will have access, media will have access, and any VIP guests that we have in Dubai, but we won't be opening to general spectatorship at the Dubai World Cup. Luckily, we have a huge building. I'm sure Sam may have covered the fact that we are sorry you can't come and visit us, and I think Paddy's going to take you round virtually and show you the facility. But needless to say, it's a huge facility, and just to set the scene, I don't know if anybody has been to Dubai, but MEYDAN end to end is double the length of Burj Khalifa, so it's quite an impressive. Was that going to be Paddy's line?
I was going to use that one. You stand
Yeah, you tip it over.
It's twice as tall as the Burj Khalifa.
Anyway, it's a huge venue, so we do have the grace of space, so we're able to welcome select guests for the Dubai World Cup in a very spaced out environment. So we're hoping for a successful and safe Dubai World Cup. A lot of our communications will be focusing on that message, and we have mass operations meetings to plan the ingress and egress of all the people coming to make sure everybody comes in safely. We're looking at PCR testing and making sure everybody's comfortable at the event. And we hope it's a success. We have got 72 suites, private suites in MEYDAN grandstand. We hope to be using the majority of those. For example, if we would have had a previous client who would have had one box for 100 people, we're now putting them over 3 or 4 boxes, so we're trying to spread everybody out. So it's not to say we're running at full capacity, far from it. We may be running around maximum 20% capacity compared to a normal World Cup, but we'll be using the space to space everybody out.
What is the capacity for World Cup actually?
60,000.
60,000.
60,000 would be our normal World Cup. So mostly when we've had the trainees come in, we've put them into the events team. So looking at, it's been specifically targeted because we run the His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Racing Excellence Awards. So we identify 5 categories, which is leading horse, leading owner, leading trainer, leading jockey, 6. People's Choice, which is a voting one, and we also have the Lifetime Achievement Award, which is so the owner, trainer, jockey and horse are analysed on statistics. People's Choice is a voting one, and we have the Lifetime Achievement, which is awarded by the committee to somebody who's dedicated a lifetime to racing industry. Normally we would put the trainees into sourcing information on those categories for us, but also our style stakes, our fashion side, they get involved in the fashion setup and planning, partnering with different brands, getting prizes, getting stuff done for them. They tend to sit mostly in events, but we do, while they're with us in Cork Comms, I would spend time with them with my team. They would join us on race night, so we've asked the trainees to also come up to the sponsor box. We feel like they're very well versed in racing, and on a normal season we would have guests going down every single race to the parade ring to have a look at the horses before they go out, and the trainees have helped us host groups in the parade ring, explaining what's happening, explaining that there's a moment when the jockeys have to go onto the horses, that what they're talking about perhaps with their trainers, how they're loading into the starting stall. So they're giving, the non-racing guests the racing experience. So we asked them to help us with that on race nights because it's fantastic for us to have that assistance. So we've definitely missed them doing that this year. Unfortunately, we can't take guests down this year, so it's worked side by side, but we've definitely missed them having that interaction with them. And generally, we find that they're very keen to help us with that. Actually, they're very keen to help us with explaining these. Most of the guests that we have under our sponsors or hospitality guests that are coming in don't really know racing. You'll have your owners and connections and people that are involved with the horses, but the people that are coming upstairs to book a private suite to populate this huge grandstand that we have, they're just people coming to celebrate a birthday or a celebration, social occasion. So it's quite important to embrace who we can. When we were at Nadal Sheba, we had a lot more smaller partners. So we had a lot more smaller, and when we moved to MEYDAN, we used a strategy to, it's not our strategy, it's used by many major sports around the world, which is
they're key.
Everybody wants to sponsor the Dubai World Cup. So it's non-stop, can we sponsor just now? But we have to drive traffic and sponsorships through to the whole season. So what we did was we bundled up, saying if you want to be a World Cup sponsor, you also have to sponsor the carnival, and you also have to sponsor racing at MEYDAN. So we say to you, become our pillar partner, and you're actually, instead of just giving us, I don't know, I'm not going to talk numbers because it's all, instead of giving us £10, you're now going to give us £100, but you're going to get all of this, and it's got to be for 3 years. So we've actually secured our calendar for a longer period. So by doing that, what we want to do is say to them, you're going to have a lot more exposure because we're going to give you all the things we used to give these 25 partners. We're going to give it to 10 now, but we've actually upped our revenue, increased your exposure, and reduced the amount of work we're doing in like piecemeal pieces. That is not applied across other race courses. I'm not well versed in that, but I know that other race tracks around the world will sell race by race, and it works for them. I'm not saying it doesn't, but we've tried to pull in bigger partners across bigger, longer periods. That's been our strategy. We will try and enhance with more.
No, you can see it.
I guess that's just the way the structure is, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
like I say, everyone wants to sponsor that
Yeah.
World Cup,
And that's-
there's
that's-
the build up to the World Cup, and then you can't forget the domestic racing
and that's
as well.
similar to FIFA. It's actually a FIFA model.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's-
FIFA, I
it's
mean, the
not
Olympics, they've got
us.
their Coca-Cola's, their McDonald's, they're big.
Yeah, they're going to be there for the World Cup every
yeah,
time for
for
sure.
sure.
But like, what else can you bring? How else can you support the sport? You know, and that's what we're trying to do. But especially with partners like Longines, amazing case study if anybody's interested in sponsorship, because they've literally taken over the world.
Yes.
And the amount of money they've in polo, in show jumping, it's all equestrian focused. They've had a very clear strategy, and they've just invested so much money into equine sport around the world, which is to all our advantage, you know. And I'll have to say that like people like Godolphin and some key owners are very gracious at thanking the sponsors post a win. So let's say they win a big ticket on the Dubai World Cup or whatever, they'll always ask for the sponsor details and write to them independently, not through us, to say thank you for your contribution. And I think that's a really important message to the trainees, that if they go on to become involved in racing moving forward, I think this is a strong message to send, because if we don't encourage these partners to come and say thank you for the support, it affects everything. It affects prize money, it affects the ability to operate. So that's one thing I like to try and encourage every year. You know, just that as an owner, as a representative or whatever, it's nice to make a connection with the sponsors when you can, because it lets them realise that their expenditure and investment is worthwhile.
Good afternoon to all you trainees for the Godolphin Flying Stars. My name is Patrick Baker. I'm the track manager here at MEYDAN for the Dubai Racing Club. And unfortunately this year you're not going to be able to join us as we head towards the Dubai World Cup and the 25th anniversary. You're going to be the first ones actually to miss a World Cup. That's very unfortunate, but such is life. Anyway, we're here and we'll do our best to show you around a little bit, give you a little bit of a flavour of what's going on here, some preparations we're going through toward the big day. We've just had a Super Saturday yesterday evening, which was ran pretty smoothly. Nice horses won and booked their tickets for World Cup night. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting as we go forward. So here we are in the saddling paddock of MEYDAN Racecourse, and we're looking up at the Royal entrance, the Royal Enclosure. As you can see, this is, it's very big from this angle, but even the saddling area here is very large also. There's a lot of room. We have a lot of saddling boxes. You shouldn't end up with too many problems around here as far as horses getting in each other's way. And they're also, just from this side, this angle here, there's tunnels from the receiving barn now, where the horses come up. There's, I think it's an 800-metre walk tunnel, air-conditioned tunnel, that comes all the way up under the hotel, comes all the way up here and into the saddling area. So there's quite a way for the horses to get up here. So once all the horses are saddled and they all go into draw order, they'll be asked to line up and head on down into the paddock, going underneath the grandstand.
It's a long process from start to finish, isn't it? From dropping off at the horse box to...
Yeah, it is quite long, and it's, I think they'd recommend that horses be here a good hour and a quarter before their race. So we've got a couple of tunnels to go through. This is the main one leading into the main parade ring. It's just such a vast place. Incredible, so different to Nella Sheba. Oh, so yeah, so entering the parade ring, I mean, there's very few race days actually because we race under lights the majority of the time, so coming out and having the parade ring in sunshine, that only really happens on World Cup Day and only one or two other meetings. And the screen, yeah, that screen in front, I think it's the largest screen in the world. It's a Mitsubishi screen. It has 4 huge speakers that blast out the sound, and they add to the sound system as well. On a normal World Cup, they will add more speakers so everyone can hear. That's the hotel end. Gives you a look at the MEYDAN grandstand, which can house up to 60,000 people capacity on a good day. Unfortunately, we're not going to have that this year due to the pandemic. But the team are doing their absolute best to try and fill it as much as possible. I think Claire mentioned earlier we'll probably get 20% with social distancing this year, which we'll take that. Here at MEYDAN we have 2 tracks. I think Sam Shinsky mentioned that. So we have the turf track, which is a 1.5 mile round, or 2,400 metres round. We also have the dirt track, which is 1,750. Turf track we have 2 chutes. We got the 6 furlong or 1,200 metre chute, straight course. And then we also have a 2,000 metre chute or a 10 furlong chute that starts out the back here. The dirt track, we also have 2 chutes. We have a 1,600 metre chute and a 1,400 metre chute. This is not conventional to most turf dirt setups, whereas normally they have the dirt track on the outside and the turf on the inside, but I believe His Highness Sheikh Mohammed wanted the World Cup, the Shima Classic, to start in front of the stands, and so what was to have the turf track on the outside. So originally when we MEYDAN was put together, the dirt was actually Tapeta, and that's survived for 5 years, but they struggled a bit, especially with the Americans. They didn't attract the Americans to come over here, so they switched back to dirt in 2014. So the 2015 World Cup was the first year they went back to dirt. Those tracks ride very well. They're very fair. A lot of work goes into them. A team of about 80 guys working on these 2 tracks. We also have a training track, grass and tapeta over the back. Zabil Stables have their own, Satish C. Mahi has his own track, a 9 furlong dirt track there, and Metropolitan or Red Stable, Dubai Stable and Desert Stables will share another track that we take care of as well with track maintenance. Well, it's actually going to go to, I can explain the grass actually. So this turf track now. So we're in the middle. We had Super Saturday yesterday. We're in the middle of renovating, preparing for World Cup. So we had the rail out 4 meters yesterday, and we actually have 4 rail positions. So we have true, 4, 8, and 12 meters. We could go. We used to go 15 meters out, which is halfway across the track. It's 30 meters wide. We don't anymore. We only go as far as 12. It would have to be really adverse conditions for us to go out to 15 to protect the rest of the track. The grass we have in the track all year round. We have Bermuda in the grass underneath. October, November time when we're getting ready to overseed with rye grass, and we race on rye during the winter. It's the only time we can overseed the track actually is there's like a window at the end of October when the temperature drops sufficiently that the ryegrass will actually take. Before then, you just can't do it. But it works very well. It's really hardy grass. It takes traffic very well, especially with the rail positions that we move. It works, and it gets better as the season goes on as well, because it's very young. By the time we oversee the beginning of November, by the time we were racing on its first week in January, which is very short growth periods. In 2 months we're racing on it, and then it's full on all the way till the end of the season. We're racing almost every week, sometimes twice a week on it. So it holds up very well. Very happy with it. It's used for training every day. So 4 o'clock in the morning we'll open this track under lights, and we train up until 9:30 in the morning, 7 days a week. Then it's just a case of just looking after it, really, making sure it's got enough water on for the morning, not overwatering, making sure it's as even as possible all the way through. With the sand, it does tend to move quite a bit, so we'll grade the track at least once a week, and just trying to keep it as safe and as even as possible. And doing that, we can ensure that it's a fair track as well. And we measure the track once a week just to make sure we are even through, and then we don't show to be getting bias. Since we introduced that seems to give us a clearer indication of where we're at. It's used for training every day. So 4 o'clock in the morning we'll open this track under lights, and we train up until 9:30 in the morning, 7 days a week. Then it's just a case of just looking after it, really, making sure it's got enough water on for the morning, not overwatering, making sure it's as even as possible all the way through. With the sand, it does tend to move quite a bit, so we'll grade the track at least once a week, and just trying to keep it as safe and as even as possible. And doing that, we can ensure that it's a fair track as well. And we measure the track once a week just to make sure we are even through, and then we don't show to be getting bias. Since we introduced that seems to give us a clearer indication of where we're at with the track as well. So unfortunately, guys, you not being here this year, Sam did mention on race nights you would shadow the clerk of the scales, or the stewards, or the paddock stewards, and you would all have the opportunity to shadow me as well. And on race nights, I'm in one of the chase cars, and we're on the emergency roads here. We follow the races until their completion. You would have got to a view racing from a very different angle, and that's actually following the horses as they run. Yeah, that's unfortunate. You're not going to get to see that. It's a unique way of looking at racing, and gets you a little bit closer to the action.